everybody, Jennifer Roberts here, Pod Queen. And I have my brother-in-law, Dale Anderson, who has his own podcast.
Yes, I do.
You didn't clear that with me.
Well...
Little bit of strife with the family right now. We're doing intervention. If I could call the other guests in to confront you.
We should have another podcast on forgiveness.
Good idea. Today's topic is mercy. So I'm going to extend mercy to Dale for trying to steal my thunder.
Oh, thank you so much.
Now, tell us the name of your podcast.
The name of my podcast is called Mercy Matters.
Mercy Matters, because Dale wrote a book called Mercy Wins.
Yeah.
There it is. And on his podcast, he has moving graphics. Anyway, I think he got more Christmas money from the in-laws this year. How are you affording this, Dale? Just kidding.
It's my allowance.
It's true. Well, this is fun because the reason I'm having you, well, first of all, you're relative and stuff, and I didn't want to, get y'all mad.
I was wondering when you were going to have me.
I know, you've been talking about it. But someone wrote me and said, would you talk about mercy?
Sure, awesome.
And I'm like, mercy? Well, I know a guy that talks about mercy.
That's me.
He wrote a book, you guys. He's a big-time author. I have a major star on my show. That's why you have your own podcast with moving graphics.
Yes, because I can afford to, now that I have a book.
Now that you're major. So, first of all, I want you, if you're comfortable, whatever part of your encounter that you would like to share.
Okay.
Do you want to do that?
Sure.
I didn't prep you on that.
Okay.
So why mercy, basically? Like, what led you into that topic?
Mercy is such a strong theme throughout the book of James. The Lord really touched my heart regarding the book of James. And it's such a strong theme. And really, in the moment of the impartation, I had such a revelation of the mercy that Jesus extended throughout all of his life that first began in the hidden years.
Yeah.
So in the years where nobody really knows about,
right.
When he lived in Nazareth with his family.
When he had real brothers.
We had real brothers, real sisters, a real mom and dad.
Yeah.
He had to do what he was told. He had to walk with the family, according to the Sermon on the Mount. God in the flesh, but still a man.
Yeah.
And
unbelievable.
They knew him before he was anointed by the Holy Spirit to do works of power, though he was God in the... how we figured that out, I don't know.
Right.
But anyways,
right.
So it's at the Jordan where he gets anointed to do works of power, but up until then, they knew him as a man, more as a man. The neighborhood knew him as a man. When he was 5 years old, he played King of the Hill and won all the time. All the time.
All the time.
So
those guessing games, he nailed it.
Yeah, and I just, as the Lord was really just touching my heart in the encounter with James, it just really helped me see how much mercy he's extended and how really very little we know the attribute of God's mercy. It's with Moses' encounter on the mountaintop, it's the very first attribute that God identifies of himself. I am the Lord God merciful. That's the thing. He says, I love to extend mercy.
Yeah.
He delights in mercy, Hosea chapter 6. So, really, I think the key verse of James is James 2:13, which is mercy triumphs over judgment, which, if you look at how Jesus taught the subject of mercy, he gave us, in his teachings, he gave us 4 main verses, Matthew 9, where it says, go and learn mercy, because I delight in mercy, quoting Hosea 6.
Right.
Then in Matthew 12, he said, if you've learned mercy, you will not acquit the guilty. And so actually our understanding of judgment comes by first knowing the true mercy of God.
Right.
So mercy and justice are actually 2 sides of the same coin.
Right.
And so in the encounter where the Lord touched my heart, it was probably the main theme that came from the book. And if you actually take the theme of mercy and make it as a common thread throughout the book of James, it actually unlocks the book in an astounding way that I'm not sure many people understand.
Right.
James is pretty severe. He's a pretty strong writer. And
it used to be a hard book for me to read for a number of years.
Yeah, no, truly. And actually, when the Lord touched me with James, I wasn't actually thinking about James. I was really into Daniel, and I was looking at Hosea. But I realized in my journal that the whole list of things that I was asking the Lord to show me about himself are all in the book of James.
Wow,
and
that's
so,
awesome.
And so he unlocks it. under the whole theme of mercy. And so I realized that when the Lord is speaking, he can speak really strong, and he's actually speaking out of a heart of mercy.
Right.
You know?
Now, talk about that for a minute. What do you mean?
Well, when we understand that, when we truly touch the mercy of the Lord, we then get to know that he's a just God.
Yeah.
I like to look at it this way, that at the cross of Jesus Christ, the day that Jesus died on the cross, it was mercy, the mercy of God and the justice of God kissed in one moment.
Wow, that's good.
They came together in one moment. And so we see that the mercy of God and the justice of God can come in one moment at the same time without violating the nature of God.
Right.
And so when I saw James, how severe, because it was a book that I just thought, man, I don't know if I can take James today.
Right,
It's like
right.
that's like a bitter pill to swallow sometimes. You know, he's just so strong.
Right.
But when mercy touched my spirit, I thought, no, this is the mercy of God for me, that he would talk in a way that's just straight up. You know, James just comes straight from the hip. So I imagine it this way. This is my imagination. This is my musings, my meditation. So I'm imagining James having walked all of his life before the cross and then at the cross as an unbeliever, because that's what John 7 tells us. Even John 7:5, even his brothers did not believe in him.
Wow.
And so at the cross, we only see Mary. We see none of the other family members. So at this man's most critical moment, at the height of crisis for a human being, his point of death, all he's got is his mom around him, nobody else. And so I'm looking at this and imagining Jesus, before he ascends into heaven, after the resurrection, meeting James.
Yeah.
And really having a face-to-face talk, that all we're told in 1 Corinthians 15 is that they met. We're not told what was said, and we're not told James' reaction, but we see throughout the rest of recorded history in the Bible, we see James's life response.
Wow.
And so he was a man of fasting and prayer. He was a man that actually couldn't be trusted with his mother at the cross. You know, Jesus says, John, this is your, woman, this is your son, this is,
Yeah.
So he gave Mary to John, which actually James was the next in line. Mary should have gone to James.
Interesting. I've never thought about that.
But what happens is he has a presence of mind to hand the livelihood of his mother over to John, but a couple of years later, James is the actual pastor of the Jerusalem church.
Wow.
I want to know what changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happened? Why could he not trust him with his mom at the cross, but a couple of years later, he's actually trusting him with the church that's under revival. It's growing under heavy persecution, and this is the man that will keep the thing steady. He's the anchor, he's the rock, he's the one that's going to keep things moving in a direction that will not violate the gospel.
Right.
And James was the man at the Jerusalem Council that opened the entire door to the Gentiles.
Right.
And so something has changed.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is that James so met the Lord after the resurrection, before Jesus went, he so met the mercy of his brother in that encounter. And that's where I go to the very last verse of James, where it says, where James is speaking, he said, "Brethren, if someone turns another man from the error of his ways, let it be known that someone has saved a soul from death and covered a multitude of sins."
Wow.
And I think James is talking about his family there.
Right.
The reason why we know so very little about the home of Jesus and the formative years of growing up is that Jesus has chosen to cover a multitude of sins. And
wow.
we will never
That's
know.
Powerful.
We will never know, very few of those things.
And that is mercy.
And that's mercy.
And we can walk in that.
We can totally walk in that.
Which I think, we just have a minute left, but that's where we live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where everyone has an opportunity to extend mercy.
Yeah.
And to know that actually Jesus did that.
Yes, he did.
In a really practical way, in a way that I have to, in a way that you have to, that we all have to.
Yeah, he truly did. And gave it to his brother in a very real way that so touched James that the gift of God, of gratitude that came out of James back to his brother was radical.
Yeah, that's
absolutely
awesome.
radical.
That's
and
awesome.
he stood on that for years and was a man of prayer. The thing that they said about James is they called him camel knees. He lived his life from prayer and just was a very tender man after that, but could speak straight because
so good.
He said, "I'm being merciful. Let me tell you what it was like."
Yeah.
So I see the book of James as mostly what it was like at home and the transformation that took place afterwards. I see him working that out, just not saying that, hey, this is our family. I think he just left that out.
Right, that's good, that's good.
And so it's a very powerful thing.
If you like that, you'll like this. Mercy Wins, how do people get this?
They, wow, that's good.
Okay, message me, write the Pod Queen, we'll figure it out. We'll let you know how to buy this thing, because it's too good not to read it. Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.